Hi everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Stellium Astrology podcast. Today I am joined by my glamorous assistant Ewan as an experiment to see whether or not he will scream or whether he will keep quiet during this recording. I'm Stephanie James, by the way. I'm the host and the founder of StelliumAstrology.com. I used to write horoscopes for a number of publications, including Elle magazine, and I'm also an occasional tutor at the London School of Astrology. And Ewan is my little baby boy who turned up in July and ever since has been wreaking havoc in my household. But he is the most welcome guest. He's got a little banana chew toy. He's looking at the phone. He's quite warm actually. It's really warm in here. I don't know why. He's got a little banana chew toy that he's enjoying at the moment. He enjoys rubbing it on his gums because he's teething. So I thought I'd just say last week was my birthday and I enjoyed my birthday. It was really chilled out. Went out for lunch and just got lots of prezzies. My fella got me a juicer. I used to, back in the days when the craze of juicing was really exciting and new, I was really into it and I loved it, and I've been kind of talking about juicing again recently and just how much I've missed it. And when I broke up with my ex, one of the things that he ended up keeping was the juicer, which is fine, didn't bother me. Sometimes I'm a Scorpio moon, I like to make a clean break, and if that means leaving stuff behind, then I leave. I didn't abandon him, by the way. It sounds like I just got up and left one day, but yeah, like I kind of I try to be as amicable as possible, and so I left him the PlayStation 3. Kind of regret that because had a GTA 4 on PlayStation 3, and you can play online for free on the PS3, and also I found it really easy to break into the military base and steal a fighter jet. It's just so much easier on the PS3. So yeah. Anyway, that's a little insight into my little weird Aquarius Stellium who likes online gaming. So today I wanted to just talk about the fact that, for my birthday last week, I got loads of cool stuff. I got a book about Princess Diana. In fact, it's here. I got a book about Princess Diana. I got a vocational astrology book by Faye Blake Cosser, all about vocation, discovering what you want to do, your passion in life. It's just slightly out of reach, but I got a book about Diana and her life through astrology, written by her astrologer Penny Thornton. And I've recommended a book by Penny Thornton before. It's about relationship astrology. It's probably called Relationship Astrology. And yeah, that was a great book on synastry. It was called Synastry. So before I properly get going, I've got the phone. I'm recording on my phone at the moment just because it's just easier. I got a lovely review in the week. Oh gosh, now my screen's gone a bit funny. So here's the review. Sorry if you can hear a little noise. It's me trying to enlarge an image. It says here, this podcast makes astrology exciting. I'm listening to all the foundational astrology episodes on repeat, and it's been an amazing way for me to learn more about astrology in action. I feel like Stephanie's just chatting with us at coffee about astrology and life, and suddenly I find so many pieces making sense. Thank you. So I don't know if there's more to that review or not. It looks like there might be. This just got emailed to me, and that is from Shaheen the Dream via Apple Podcasts from the US of A. Thank you, Shaheen the Dream. I'm really glad, that was kind of like what I was going for. I wanted you to feel like you were having a coffee with me, actually, and just enjoying, just enjoying life and just talking about all things astrology. So I just wanted to cover that review with you guys, and also talk to you today, really, mostly about how to get into the natal chart. So you've got all of your tools of how to understand individual bits, but how do you actually start reading somebody's chart? Now, there are a number of ways that you can do it, and I'm not this episode isn't scripted. This is just me having a chat with you, as is always the way. Generally, for me, I find the most effective way to get into the natal chart is to look at the big three. So that's the sun, moon, and ascendant. If you know your astrology, if you've worked out, if you know what the planets are and you know what the signs are, and you've got a rough idea of the houses, You might not know how to bring it all together, but it is kind of like, for me, it's like reading a book. If the chart is cast without the houses, I feel like I can't read it properly. But you don't have to do it in any particular order. My sister used to get really annoyed, and she'd be like, "Oh, come on, just spit it out." Because I used to sit there and go, "Okay, so you've got the sun in the 9th house in Cancer, and you've got moon in Sagittarius in the 2nd house in conjunction with Pluto, and you've got a Scorpio ascendant." And I'd start off like that, and then I'd start to get into it. But my sister used to think I was just like doing the whole jargon waffle, and actually it's not. I think generally when you first start reading a chart, it starts off slow. You start off initially not really knowing how to articulate yourself, so you have to talk your way around the chart until you feel comfortable. So that said, I did actually pick out a chart today to look at, a listener chart, but I thought also it might be interesting to look at a celebrity chart as well, so we'll see who we can look at. But yeah, so the big three. So obviously the sun shines a light on what we're here to do and what we're growing towards, a little bit like looking at the way that plants grow towards the sunlight. We grow towards our sun, and the moon is kind of like our roots, the roots of the tree that we're, the soil that we're growing from, and our nourishment and our upbringing, our background. So when someone's had a difficult start in life, you can go, "Oh, they didn't have the best start, like for whatever way they were disadvantaged." Your moon can tell you that story, or you might have had a really great upbringing. So that's an interesting way to start reading the chart. And the ascendant is obviously our perspective and the way we engage with the world. It's kind of like, if you think about opening your front door, it's kind of what you expect to see as you step out the front door. But also, you don't have to start with the big three, because sometimes that can be difficult because you feel like you've got pressure applied to yourself in order to read that way. Another way that I find incredibly effective is to just look at the chart and see what jumps out at me. So initially, you could say the first thing that jumps out at you is maybe a high Mars placement in the chart, something in conjunction with the midheaven maybe, and you go, "Oh, this is somebody who's probably going to be quite a natural leader and inspire other people." Or perhaps it could be somebody who is competitive, or perhaps naturally sporting, sporty type, has to burn off energy. Just see where your eye draws you to the chart. Or it might be that might not be anything to do with angular planets. It could actually be to do with the pattern in the middle of the chart. Now, we've looked at aspect patterns, and we've seen that they can actually mean different types of things. And having a lot of trines, or a grand trine, for example, can be sort of an ease in life, in certain areas of their life. They kind of find that they are quite lucky in some way or another, or they just happen to have a natural gift. Whereas a lot of squares can be somebody who's perhaps constantly on a road of self-improvement maybe. So the chart I've chosen to look at today is Emily H. I thought I'd look at your chart because actually I think you are the first person to have applied to be on the podcast since I stopped doing the not live, but like the frequently recorded shows, since I went on my maternity leave. What are you doing, Ewan? Are you going to pull the laptop over? He's definitely interested. I might have to grab a toy for him in a minute so that he doesn't start wrecking a joint. So yeah, Emily, as mentioned, you do actually have Mars on your midheaven, and you do have Sun in Cancer, and you do have Moon Pluto in the 2nd house in Sagittarius, and a Scorpio ascendant. Now, what's interesting about your chart, what I noticed was you said that you're born at 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, how accurate is that? Because that's a very specific time, 3:30, and some of us are born at maybe 3:25 or 3:20, but our mums remember it as just rounding it up to the next half hour. So oh dear, Ewan, are you doing a poo-poo? Are you doing a poo-poo? Let's hope not. So yes, Emily, you have got Sun in Cancer, but you've got Sun Saturn in Cancer. So Sun in Cancer, you'd look at that and you think, well, Cancerians are known for being crustacean little crabbies, so that could be a crabby mood sometimes, somebody who kind of needs to come out of their shell a little bit. But we also know that they're very protective of their family, you can associate being Cancerian with not just your family, but your clan, like your kind of where you come from, sort of your tribe, really. So think about that in a sense of patriotism. It could be that you feel very proud of where you come from. But also, an added dimension to this is the fact that you have it in the 9th house, which means that travel is probably going to be an important key to your life. So if you think what I've just done there, I've looked at the sun, what the sun means, what the sun means in Cancer, and also the house placement. And then if we say, well, there's Saturn there too, we can say, well, Saturn is somebody who's quite serious. Saturn is kind of a bit of a party pooper. It's kind of like major buzzkill. And I'm not saying you're a major buzzkill, but it could be somebody who, can't necessarily enjoy the footloose, fancy-free aspect of the 9th house, of getting up and expanding your horizons without doing some kind of hard work or scholarship first. So it might be that actually, you did a lot of study, went to university, maybe took a gap year and went travelling. Cancer is quite often associated with knowing when there's a niche to be had, and it can be sometimes associated with fashion. So you could have studied maybe textiles or fashion in uni. You've got quite a lot of there's a watery aspect to your chart, so I'd say more along the lines of doing something in a caring aspect, that Cancerian caring aspect. Maybe you studied nursing, for example. A lot of responsibility falls on the shoulder of a nurse, but there definitely seems to be some kind of aspect of wanting to help and care in some way, and it could be Mars that's on your midheaven in Leo actually, but Mars very close to the midheaven. Mars actually happens to be the ruler of the 6th house. Again, that's like another kind of caring type of aspect. Now, one thing I will say is that your ascendant might be slightly off because you are 0 degrees Scorpio. It's 0 degrees Scorpio, isn't it, Ewan? Which means that there is every chance that you could have a Libra ascendant. So you'll have to have a listen to the Scorpio or the Libra episodes and see what you kind of identify with. Are you more of a Mars type person, or are you more of a Venus type person? It might be difficult to differentiate because you have Mars on your midheaven there. But if your birth time is slightly wrong, then your midheaven could be slightly wider or tighter, depending. Mars could be tighter on your midheaven or actually slightly wider. So it'd be interesting to know if you were born slightly earlier or later and it was just a rounded up number. Ah, Ewan looks tired. You look tired, don't you, little bubs? So that's an interesting look at your sun. And so maybe you're not travelling, but maybe it's something you aspire to do. But definitely the area your sun is in is the area where you, aspire, you grow towards. It's what your life's journey is carving you out to become. So you may not even identify with that just yet, but it may be something that unfolds for you. However, your moon placement, your lunar placement in the 2nd house in Sagittarius, again, there's another Sagittarius and the 9th house have a relationship, because Sagittarius is naturally placed when you put Aries on the ascendant, which is the associated with the 1st house. There's that echo of like that kind of Sagittarian 9th house message. And moon Pluto types like Lady Gaga, for example, are usually provoke quite a strong reaction or a strong feeling in other people. They can definitely be prone to extreme behaviour, sometimes extremes in mood swings, for example, or it could be all or nothing attitudes toward diet, like I'm going to be vegan and it's pure veganism, and you can do it like really get intensely involved with it, obsessed, and then as time passes you snap out of that and try something new, especially with Sag is quite a faddy sign. They like to follow what the trend is, and they kind of have a young sort of spirit, so they're usually in tune with the youth, whatever the latest movement in the youth of today can be. But yeah, I'd say that with Moon Pluto, there's an intense attitude towards family life. It might be like that there's a lot of expectation from family, and you're kind of, maybe disappointment is a driving force for you. You don't want to disappoint other people, so maybe you felt drawn to, going to uni, studying and getting some kind of qualification, or perhaps travelling because the intensity of expectation was very heavy for you and they wanted you to achieve quite a lot. That's a possibility. Or it could be that you were escaping that kind of intensity. Moon Pluto as well, they often have to start over. So it could be that you've had you had to move house a few times, or your childhood home may not exist anymore, for example. But there's definitely a sense of a natural want to be quite private and secretive about your past. Keep, that only the real close people get to know who you truly are. And then also on top of that, you've got this kind of need to get intensely involved and share your emotional, your inner landscape with somebody on a very, very close level. So it could be that actually, when you get into a relationship, your other half is you're inseparable. And another interesting, so say your ascendant is correct, then you have got a Scorpio ascendant, which then builds a relationship between the fact that you've got Moon Pluto, because Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, by modern assignment, and by traditional assignments, Scorpio is a Mars ruled sign. So we've got that Mars-Pluto thing going on, that relationship. So again, this is an interesting thing because it brings the midheaven into the picture, and the midheaven is kind of contradicts the ascendant, because Scorpio is quite an introverted and private sign, whereas Leo is a very outgoing, gregarious and vivacious sign that is quite confident and outgoing. So there's this conflict between being private and being public, and you've got that Mars there, so it puts you in a sense out there on the midheaven. So maybe you're doing something that maybe you feel like you want to be a bit more outgoing and you want to be seen, but there's aspects of who you are that you just want to keep very private. And the moon being below the horizon as well, I would say that it's definitely your emotional sort of environment, your emotional background, your home life is very private for you. We could say as well with the second house moon placement that actually, ownership, possessions, your financial situation may be something you've had to learn the hard way with. It could be that you've run up lots of debt in the past and you've had to learn how to manage your finances. It could be that maybe you have been made redundant from a position and have gone from earning a really good wage to actually not really having an awful lot of money for a little while, that kind of thing. So it's an interesting chart to look at, just looking at sort of like the sun, moon and the ascendant, and then looking at the relationship between each of these things. But there's other ways you can look at it, because you could look at the Venus in the 8th house, for example. So there's Venus and Gemini in the 8th house, and so immediately when I see Venus in the 8th house, I think, well, that's somebody who might be the first port of call to all of their friends for receiving like hand-me-downs or second-hand bits and bobs. If you're not too bothered about having second-hand stuff like like a car, for example, maybe somebody's, like myself, I have Venus in the 8th house, and I think of it as kind of like I come from a really big family and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to chuck this out, does anybody want it? It could be furniture, it could be like vehicles, it could be clothing, it could be anything. It's kind of like that fortunate placement to have in an area that's represented by other people's investment in you. So that maybe that kind of learning how to deal with your finances ties up nicely with that Venus placement in the 8th house. There's a kind of sense of wanting to okay, little Bubs, he's so tired, goodness me, this little boy is so tired, he just keeps fidgeting around. But yes, Venus in the 8th house is actually quite a nice placement for Venus, as far as encouraging other people to invest in you is concerned. You don't even have to do much encouraging, you're just the person that people think of. So an interesting one, especially it would be very interesting if your birth time is slightly wrong and actually you do have a Libra ascendant, because then that makes you a very 8th house person. Whereas at the moment you've got that kind of second house and kind of midheaven placed rulership of Pluto and Mars. Hopefully I'm not talking too much gobbledygook. Am I talking gobbledygook, Ewan? Am I talking gobbledygook? Am I? But yeah, so that's an interesting chart to look at, and I thank you, Emily, for contributing your chart to today's show, and I hope that it sheds a light for you guys on the fact that there is no real way of reading a chart. I think probably by now you may have gathered that I just look at anything in the chart and go, oh, okay, what's this, what's that, what's this, what's that, and I just read absolutely anything and everything in any order that I fancy, just because it just, for me, makes it, I don't know, I think it's my Gemini ascendant. I'm able to be a bit scattered. Maybe somebody with a Sun-Saturn conjunction like you, Emily, would need to have more structure in the way they read the chart, in which case I would say go in through the front door, go through the ascendant, and start just speaking about the ascendant and what somebody with that ascendant would have. Then look for the chart ruler, so look for the ascendant ruler, look for something like that, or if you're like, if you're somebody who just feels drawn to a certain area, if there's something that jumps out, if it's an aspect pattern, like there is a grand trine in this chart, but it involves one of the nodes, so I don't know if we can really call it a grand trine. But, there are, it's one of those things that you can just follow where your eye is drawn, because actually astrology is not a science, it's a craft, it's an art, it's something that we, it's all about our own initial perspective. I think I'm breaking all the rules of podcasting, actually, by just having Ewan here. But this is how it is for me now, isn't it? Just as an example, and I'm not going to go into great detail, let's go and look at Britney Spears' chart, because she is current. She's in the news a lot, isn't she? So let's look up Britney. Astro.com. Britney. If anybody's a fan of Britney Spears, I've watched the conservatorship thing, Britney versus Spears or something like that. It was on Thingamabob on Netflix, and it's mad, it's crazy. She's obviously very intelligent. She's very into astrology, actually. There's a guy called Barry who runs the astrology shop in Covent Garden. If you've ever been to London, it's like a bit of a mecca for astrologers. And Barry, who runs the shop, I was at a party and he was telling me that Britney came in and had her chart done, and it was I think you get lots of like intrigued famous people going into to the shop. So yeah, he knows that he saw her birth certificate, so he knows it's accurate. So we don't have to explain much about Britney's life. If you're interested, it's quite easy to find out about what she's up to and what she's been up to. So let's have a look. So for Britney, she has got, let's go in through the front door. She's got Libra rising. So immediately you're going to think Libra, it's about relating to others. It's often an attractive sign because it's a Venus ruled sign. And she has, 2 degrees Venus rising, Libra rising. So she's immediately going to be somebody who you probably think is going to be quite charming, quite likeable. Relationships are probably going to be important to her. Being liked is probably going to be important to her. And then we can have a look at her sun. So she's got Sun in Sagittarius. She's got Sun in conjunction with Mercury and Uranus as well. So obviously the Sun is what she's growing towards, but Sagittarius are naturally risk-taking. They enjoy freedom, a lot of freedom, and they're quite light-hearted generally, and generally quite good-spirited people. Can have spiritual ideas and can be quite open-minded as far as like religious. Particularly somebody of her generation with Neptune in Sagittarius, there's a very open-minded attitude towards religion and spirituality. But she's also got Mercury there as well. So a Sun Mercury type is a communicator, somebody who likes to write, and probably somebody who enjoys reading a lot. We know that she's a songwriter. She writes her songs. So there you go. She's naturally able to write, quite gifted in that respect. And with that Uranus placement there as well, it's going to be saying something different and a little bit against probably the status quo, or the kind of the general kind of outside the box. It goes against the grain of what everybody else is doing usually. It's usually way ahead or way behind the times. So that's her sun in Sagittarius, and she's got moon in Aquarius. So this is an unconventional moon. It's a moon that is again going to be a bit different. So she's got sun Uranus rules Aquarius, and she's got moon in Aquarius. So she's definitely going to be a quirky type of person, somebody who does things differently. And her attitude towards being a mum is probably going to be slightly different. You know, I know, like, bringing up stuff from the past, that she was photographed with her child on her lap while driving down the road. You know, people, no offence to Brittany, but not many people would actually think about doing something like that. But she was the type of mum that would, I'm not saying everyone with moon and Aquarius would do something like that. I'm just saying she's definitely. Was that a fart or a poo? I think Ewan just did a fart or a poo. I don't know if you heard it. But yeah, she's definitely somebody who is quite happy to take a risk. So that's a bit of that sun Sag as well. So that's interesting. So let's look at the ruler of her ascendant. Now, Brittany has got Venus in Capricorn, and her Venus placement, if I just have a little scroll down, is at 25 degrees of Capricorn. Now that's interesting, because what planet's there at the moment by transit? It's Pluto. And what do we know about Pluto? Pluto is about power struggles. It's about dealing with aspects of life that we don't want to. It can be quite a overbearing transit. It's a little bit like, you know, I refer to the Persephone myth whenever I talk about Venus and Pluto together usually. And Persephone gets taken into the underworld, bless you, for 6 months of the year, and then comes out and discovers that actually she quite likes the underworld. So she goes back every year for about 6 months, which is why we have our seasons. So Pluto moving over Brittany's Venus placement, it's almost like she's been sucked into the underworld. Hades has come to her. She's been to hell and back, basically. But the great thing is that she has been liberated. Now, she's had a difficult life, Brittany. She has had her relationship with her children. She's been separated from them, which has been incredibly painful for her. And she's had this conservatorship since 2008, I think it is, which is interestingly when Pluto went into Capricorn. So Pluto moved in, and now Pluto's on her Venus. She's finally, the conservatorship has finally been dissolved. So if we think about that in aspect of the fact that it's the ruler of her ascendant, it's literally her chart ruler, Pluto has come along and it's taken her to hell and back. She's had to deal with all sorts of Plutonian types who just want to keep her almost like a prisoner, enslaved, and working and paying their wages while they manage her finances for her. Definitely encourage you to watch that Netflix documentary, it's really interesting. But actually now she's been freed from that, and Pluto has is in his process of working through that. It's Mercury retrograde, so that's gone over her Venus placement as well. So it's interesting to just look at that without looking at the rest of the chart. So yeah, definitely check that out for Brittany. And she recently on her Instagram posted a picture of herself completely butt naked, with just little emojis covering up her most holiest of holies, and said something like, being a free woman never felt so good. And you know what, like, people might go, oh no, she's not well mentally, you shouldn't be doing something like that. But actually maybe this is her way of expressing herself now. She just needed to be naked. She's like being so oppressed and so controlled, and every concert she did, she was sick of doing them because she wasn't actually allowed to say what she really thought, or she wasn't allowed to, she felt obliged to what's the word? She wasn't able to make a choice to whether she wanted to do it or not. She was just told she had to. So it's really interesting, isn't it, that now that she's free from this oppression of Pluto transiting over her, leading her ruling planet of Venus, she's suddenly able to be free. And for her, and like I've said before with fire signs, with strong fire in your chart, those people tend to be quite naked sleepers and stuff. I think I've said before, I think probably in the fire episode, if you know someone with a lot of fire, they tend to burn quite hot and they like to not have too much as far as clothing's concerned. But yeah, Brittany's way of celebrating was to express herself through not wearing much at all. So good for Brittany. I hope you found that interesting. Just in case you wanted to cast Brittany's chart, it's the 2nd of December 1981. She was born in Morecambe, Morecambe, MS. So that's MCCOMB and then MSUS. The latitude and longitude are 90 west 27 and 31 north 15, and she was born at 1:30 a.m. So yeah, hopefully you have fun going into the chart, and remember it's as simple as looking at the ascendant and the sun and the moon, and then exploring around the chart that way and thinking, well, what rules the moon and what rules the Venus placement and what rules the sun placement, and having a look at and thinking what that could mean. And if you can't quite figure out, if you can't articulate it in a sense of the sign that it's in, think about the house that it's in. For Brittany, for example, her Venus is in the 4th house. That's that Pluto through the 4th house for her will have been a weight, and it definitely indicates family involvement as well, like this obsessive power struggle with family. So yeah, before I go, I just wanted to remind you guys that there's the YouTube channel that you can like and subscribe to, and hit the bell for updates for whenever I post a YouTube video. I also have the Patreon page where I'm uploading monthly interpretations of the new moons and full moons, anything of astrological interest that I happen across in my daily life, like articles and just general musings. And whenever there's interesting astrophenomena, like last month's Jupiter into Pisces transit, which happens once every 12 years, I've done an interpretation for each of the sun signs, which you can read for your sun sign or for your ascendant. I say read, but I've actually recorded a video, so that's on there for my patrons. In addition to Mercury retrograde video that's coming out on the same day that this podcast episode does. Well, Mercury is going retrograde on the same day as this podcast episode. However, the video may come out slightly earlier. And what else was I going to say to you? Yes, I just wanted to remind you that with today's episode about going into the chart, just practice makes perfect. Just practice and practice and practice reading charts. Think about, maybe look at celebrity charts, but really it's really good if you can practice on your friends and your family members, if they can tolerate that. I think that, when we all get a little bit obsessed with astrology, we start off by really just going on about it all the time, just talking and talking and talking about it all the time. That's what I was doing all the time. And, bored the crap out of all my friends and family. So, yeah, that's really the way to do it. And I was contacted by an astrologer earlier in the week. Her name is Anne Whitaker. The name may ring a bell. Reason being that actually Anne Whitaker is somebody I've recommended on my podcast. She has a blog called Writing from the 12th House, and I'm sure she has another blog as well, and I can't remember what it's called now. But Anne is a very good astrologer. I love her work. I love what she has to say about the subject. It's so interesting. Her insight is fascinating. And I'm actually speaking to her about getting her on the show as a guest, to have a chat, and maybe she can impart some of her knowledge onto you at some point in the future. But she wanted me to let you guys know that she's actually got a book that's coming out now, and she hasn't sent me a copy of the book. However, she has recorded a video. So Anne's website is called www.anne-whitaker.com, and this is Writing from the 12th House, which is her blog. There are links to her other websites as well. But yes, her book is called Postcards to the Future, and she's actually recorded a video, which she said she did as a kind of off-the-cuff, wasn't really planning anything, sort of video, and it's received great accolade. So go and check out the video on her website. I will share a link in the blurb for this podcast episode. There's some free downloads on Anne's website as well. There's one, Jupiter Meets Uranus, which is a PDF copy that you can download and devour in your own time. What's interesting about that for me personally is I have a Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in my birth chart. But yes, definitely check out Anne's work if you haven't already. She's so interesting. I really am excited about getting her on the show. And she also has a stellium, she tells me as well. So we'll probably dive into that when she does come onto the show. But yeah, check out the video on her book, Postcards to the Future. And I hope you all have a very scene-free Mercury retrograde. This one's going to be a big one for me. It's all over my chart. It's going to wreak havoc. I just know it already. Ewan's smiling as though it's like he is Mercury and he's got plans. But yeah, so just keep your head down. Check who you're sending your text messages to. Make sure you've backed up all your stuff on your phone and on your laptop. And yeah, have a smooth sailing with Mercury retrograde. Like I said, I'm going to have some stuff on the Patreon page. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode and Ewan's contribution, including the potential poo that he may have done. I just thought I'd let you guys know that I don't really do Instagram anymore. I am on it every now and again, but I don't really do it that much. I do try and check my messages as often as I can, so if I'm a bit slow getting back to you, I do apologise. And also I do get your emails as well. I do get your emails, but sometimes they get drowned out because I get so much junk mail. So but anyway, yeah, hopefully you enjoyed today's show. It's been a bit of an off-the-cuff one. I just needed to get it done, and Ewan has been such a good boy, and he helped, didn't you? You helped. Okay, thanks a lot, guys. You take care, and I'll speak to you next time. Bye now.